On today's episode of the Glue Guys, there is a swirl of off-season questions around your Brooklyn Nets. We haven't potted since the Nets were swept. We're not really going to talk about the series, but we will discuss the fallout. The fallout.
Fallout 3, New Vegas, right now.
Welcome back to the Glue Guys. This is Mike here. Say hello, Brian.
Hello. Check us out on Twitter at BK Glue Guys. Netsdaily.com.
What voice is that? Roy Firestein? What's that guy? He was an actor. Check us out on Twitter at BK Glue Guys, netsdaily.com. The Athletic. Get yourself find the paywall at theathletic.com/Glue Guys, a subsidiary of the New York Times Company. Let's look at the stock price. Did they get the Glue Guys bump today? Down.
It's going to be down.
36%.
So the market's getting crushed out there, Mike. Don't look this week.
Can that just be a running bit where we act like the stock price is dependent on our podcast?
I also want to say that I don't think enough people appreciate that the bit is completely this subsidiary of the New York Times. Nobody's asked us to say that. Nobody. That's not.
Oh, is there even a hint of people believing that the New York Times is demanding that we put that in as a disclaimer?
I like to think there's somebody out there who's like, man, these guys really sold out. They gotta.
I mean, I've been a shill. You've
been wanting to sell out for.
I fucking want to sell out. I want to sell out.
Yeah.
No one wants to buy me. That's the problem.
Yeah.
They continue. Check us out on Twitter because Brian, wow, what a thrill ride those playoffs were. Top moment from the Nets 2023 playoffs. Go. I know you have a bunch in your hopper.
The Cam Johnson dunk was big. Love the
remember that? I forgot about that.
That was a big dunk.
That was a big dunk.
Nick Claxton getting thrown out of the game for an extended mean mug, which begot our now enormous franchise of mugs, the Mean Mugs, with a bunch of different NBA player. It's the mugs in the shape.
Draymond's an investor. Yeah. Dylan Brooks is an investor.
It's gonna be big. So that was huge for us. Trying to think of anything else.
No, I mean that's basically it. So this conversation is going to be a lot about the swirling sort of news around. You know, at one point, there's this Kevin Durant story that I want to touch on. I don't know. Did you see it from the Ringer? Quotes from it.
I saw the story of him being. Is it the one about him being content being a journeyman or whatever?
It's about. I think there's some level of contentness. I don't know if he said the word content in there. He talked about like, you know. Oh yeah, is content being a basketball man? It was literally the fucking headline.
I'm getting gaslit out of my mind right now.
That's so fucking funny that I'm an asshole. So sorry, too much cursing. I know people listen to this.
It's the offseason, man. We're off the wagon. You know,
off the wagon.
I don't know, whatever it is.
Now there's something about that, but like what I want to start with is a priority and a focus surrounding what this offseason should be for the Nets. And there was this odd bubble of news. It's so funny how these things happen and we don't pod for 2 days and then it already seems like a dead news cycle. The idea that Damian Lillard wants to come to the Brooklyn Nets. And just for anyone who hasn't been tracking the news bulletins the way that we have, for most people who don't know, Brian and I we still have a ticker machine that they have, the traditional, what the ticker has come from. We get news via this paper ticker that is done through Morse code. That's how we read our Nets news.
Yep.
And essentially what has happened is that someone, I think it was Chris Haynes or someone else.
Yeah, it was Chris Haynes, I believe. Well, he was on the radio or on someone's podcast talking about this. I don't know if that's what you meant, but yeah.
I think he was on his podcast, which is called Uncut, which, one, as a podcast producer, there's multiple levels to it. One, you should cut. I mean, editing is a thing you should be proud of. Editing is a great element of podcasting. And two, as a Jew, anything called Uncut is like, and Mark Stein's on the show. You know, like Mark Stein's part of the podcast.
Don't make me be the one to make this joke, Mike.
But every time I see him, like, is this a podcast for uncircumcised basketball fans? That's what I always imagine. Right. And what a great demo.
Yeah,
that's it. No one targets the uncircumcised.
Especially the uncircumcised Jewish community, which has got to be a very
uncircumcised Jewish community.
It's got to be a unique demographic.
I would like to know who Harrison Ford, I think, is the only uncircumcised Jew. Now, I don't know that from personal experience. I just assume he has the swagger of an uncircumcised man.
Yeah.
Speaking of the Nets,
Yeah.
so yeah, it came out. It was basically like, I wouldn't be surprised if X teams went after Damian Lillard and the Brooklyn Nets were one of them. And then people dug up the quote where Lillard had talked about Mikal Bridges in the past, saying that he was his favorite wing in the NBA. And then, if I have this right, Lillard was at Game 4.
Yeah.
Right? And there's dots to connect. And then Chris Haynes,
This is the best part.
of the Uncut One, said,
Yeah.
no dots. There are dots. Don't even think about dots. There's no dots to connect. The candy dots eliminated from the shelves because Lillard couldn't get tickets to the Knicks Cavs series, so he opted to just go to the Nets game.
Oh, that's not how I thought about it. I thought he was saying that he was going to go to both games and he just couldn't get in. I mean, they're at two separate times. You could ostensibly do both. And that
maybe that's maybe I just did the bitter reading.
I think he did a bitter reading. I think he says pretty expressly that KD is content to be a journeyman, and that that Damian Lillard.
I don't think it said content at all in that article.
But here's the thing about it. It said that
did the Bible talk about Christ at all? I don't think so.
That Damian Lillard couldn't get, and he was very careful in choosing these words. Couldn't get the seats that he wanted at the Knicks game. And that was the issue, which I don't know what the seats were. If he picks a very prestigious seat, Jon Stewart's got to sit somewhere, so he can't have his seats.
It actually is very hard to get good seats.
Those are tough tickets, a lot harder. But he was careful to say that. And he also did, I think, expressly say he was going to go to both games, and then he just couldn't get the Knicks seat that he wanted.
Well, just speaking of seats, our friend Bilga Urbiri tweeted this out. I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago. Jennifer Connelly, the goddess herself, one of the stars of Top Gun Maverick, a star of film and screen or film and TV or however the saying goes.
Requiem for a Dream. That's a great one.
I know. And she goes, no, it's like, it's hard to rationalize that film and then like Top Gun Maverick, where what she does in Requiem for a Dream, and then when she has foreplay with Tom Cruise in Top Gun Maverick, it's like they're rolling around laughing. It's just like there's different sides of her.
I still haven't seen Top Gun Maverick, so no spoilers, okay?
I won't spoil the. I mean, it's a fantastic film. I don't. There's nothing.
I'm gonna see it. So don't you dare! Don't you?
Better than Beau is Afraid, Brian.
Beau's Afraid that was a tricky one. More on that in the after show. We got to get into this.
But Jennifer Connelly was at the Nets Game 4, and she screamed at the jumbotron as she was on it, and the whole energy is what I loved. Another highlight of the playoffs. To get back to Damian Lillard, so again, we're in this discussion about, it was fomenting on Twitter and the message boards for days. Oh, should the Nets go after Damian Lillard? What would it take? Blah, 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 blah. And then Chris Haynes put out that there's 0 dots. And, I had been talking to some Nets fans one-on-one about this idea that, like, we need to remove our mentality for a moment that superstars want to come to Brooklyn. They wanted to come to Brooklyn because KD and Kyrie chose Brooklyn, and then there was Harden wanted to play with them, or some other like buyout former good player like Blake Griffin wanted to be here. Okay. I still think the Nets are going to be an attraction on some level. There will be players that want to play in New York, and even though the Knicks are a better team right now, there'll still be an uneasiness about saying, like, I definitely want to play for the Knicks because just more pressure. The franchise has been shakier over a longer span of time than the Nets. I still think the Nets will be attractive. They are not, though, in the tier. I don't know if you agree with me.
Okay.
Of like a guy like Damian Lillard, like just up and leaving the franchise that he has so publicly talked about how much he loves being a Trailblazer, to go play with Mikal Bridges, right? Like, what would be the team left over if you traded for Damian Lillard? No first round picks would be gone. I guess you would sign and trade Cam Johnson over to them. Yeah. You'd probably trade Nick Claxton, just telling everyone that's what would happen. I guess Ben Simmons would be in the deal, but the Nets would then have to attach even more picks to get rid of Ben. So basically be all the picks, Ben Simmons, which I don't, again, we can talk about whether we miss him or not. Cam, and Nick Claxton. Sure, yeah, that sounds okay.
Yeah.
So then you're left with Lillard, Bridges, like Cam Thomas, like what So we just need to take a pause, Brian.
Yeah. Well, we've broken through the glass ceiling, right? And the glass ceiling, in my mind, is of signing 1A superstars in free agency, right? Not 100%. A whole lot of teams are in a position to do that. Personnel decision-making stuff aside, like that's pretty OP, and it's the best way to kind of like build a team. So I'm now just jonesing for more free agency stuff. Like I've really enjoyed how relatively limited the fallout was of having to trade KD and Kyrie in the same season, in the same week, Mike. Let's call it what it is. And Harden not too long after. So it's pretty tempting to be like, hey, we could just hold tight for a second, watch that Mikal Bridges story arc just build, get Nick Claxton his reps, get everybody, Cam Johnson's got a lot of room for growth, I think, just like let's build the bedrock, get that bedrock nice and hard. And then, well, let's make it nice and soft, actually. A soft landing for a superstar. Nice soft landing for that next free agent superstar. Because now we've done it, right? Hardest thing is to be a franchise that's in a position that is both geographically, managerially, personnel-wise, a place where you can get somebody in free agency. And let's leverage that, because it's really nice when you don't have to give up, you don't have to leverage your future to do that,
Yeah, and to go to that Kevin Durant article in The Ringer, the one where he talks about being content, literally in there. So there's butthurt Nets fans, and I get the butthurt. Like, it pained me to watch. We're recording this on Wednesday. I watched the Suns Clippers game, and just to see Kevin Durant out there in a playoff situation, and he was like guarding people in the post, and then he was scoring buckets. And they knocked the Clippers out of the playoffs. And I'm like, man, I miss that guy. Like, I miss that guy so much to watch as being a Brooklyn. I don't miss Kyrie one bit. And we should address, did you see the Kyrie tweets?
I did, about the Giannis thing.
Yeah, that someone, Brooklyn Nets fan 80 or Brooklyn Nets 85 on Twitter, who is a guy that, a mystery man.
Yeah. Been on the forums, on the Twitter forever. Been bouncing around. A free agent.
And he seems to always get the attention of KD. Like, of every NBA player, they will respond to something that he said. Yeah. He was the guy that KD was like, get your life together, basically.
Classic KD dunk.
And Kyrie, so Brooklyn Nets 85 had tweeted out about how the Bucks series where KD, his foot was on the line, I guess it was the one where Giannis stuck his foot under Kyrie, and he just tweeted out the image. He said, "Now you know how we feel."
No, it was in response to somebody who's complaining about like, wow, it's so crazy that a whole Bucks season just goes up in flames because of one like dirty play or something, which was hilariously tone deaf if you're not just drinking the Kool-Aid, Giannis's Kool-Aid. Okay.
And here's how Kyrie responds this. I don't think it was even tweeted at Kyrie. Kyrie says,
"No, it's off the wire." Yeah.
One of the most disappointing and painful moments of career. If I don't get hurt that series, every single one of us on that Brooklyn team / bandwagon would be championships. No champions. No effing doubt about it. Hella, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, actually, I appreciated if he said that as a Net, like if he had said that while he was still with the Nets, that's a message I appreciate.
Yeah.
Even though it's like butthurt and, little,
it was there.
But I appreciate that. I want that. I want someone to be like, because that was like the time when he actually felt like he actually cared about being a Nets player by saying that. And now he's not here.
You know what I think too, also, and I'm glad that I don't have to do this. If the context was different, if I didn't just net agree with everything he's saying, the one thing that just like is a classic kind of Kyrieism that piques my interest is the bandwagon. The use of the word bandwagon. Like who is on the bandwagon exactly?
Yeah.
Was that Blake Griffin or who? We're talking
does he think?
names.
Does he think the bandwagon is just the general term for fans?
I can't. That's the.
I think that because when he said team slash bandwagon,
because his fans must actually be just like all bandwagon fans, and so so maybe it's just like a bias from his
and
little
he
window
just
into
thinks
the
that's
internet.
like a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, to go back to KD, to go back, this is a serpentine podcast. We're kind of flying all over the place here.
Yeah, it's
I thought KD did not a favor. It's like he's just talking. I think people need to realize these guys aren't like, particularly Kevin Durant is really not like, we classically talk about LeBron as like LeBron knows everything that he's saying. He has a reason behind everything he says. He's trying to impact us or impact the NBA and everything that he does publicly. KD's a little less guarded. I mean, at times he's very guarded, and at other times he just kind of lets it rip. And
he's guarded but not strategic. That's how I would call him.
That's a great way to put it. He was pretty complimentary of the Nets.
Has been. He cried. I will never forget him crying at that news conference. So out of place. Or not out of place. It just felt like, where was it?
It was shocking. Yeah. I thought. Didn't you like?
Shocking. Totally.
Again, another bit of emotion that we weren't given.
No.
And he says in this article to Logan Murdoch, he says, the knowledge and information that the Nets gave to me on just my body in general helped me learn more about myself. So it was a great 4 years there. And obviously on the court with our team, there's a lot of ups and downs with the roster. But once the ball tipped, I just loved working there. And, so people are, and he says that was an important part of my life, being with the Nets. Incredible 4 years. I love the state of New York. I love the state. So like he loves like the
Buffalo. Big shout out.
The Southern Tier.
Yeah.
He's a big Southern Tier. He loves Skinny Atlas. If Katie has a house in Skinny Atlas, I would die. I would love that.
Elmira. Big shout out to Elmira, New York. You ever been there? That's a crazy place.
Yeah. It's a dark place. I had friends who got jobs out of Newhouse. To go to Elmira and be news broadcasters. Whoa. And not the place for 22-year-olds. Oxycontin mills and that was the fires, just everything. Everything that would happen there.
Yeah.
He says, good family and friends there, played some of the best ball in my life, gained a lot of confidence that I lost when I tore my Achilles. Now, people are upset about a particular thing he says. So Durant was asked what went wrong in Brooklyn. He says, you got to ask them, to be honest. My job is to play, and I think I did that. Rehab, a lot of stuff was out of my control that I can't speak on, to be honest. But I just thought we didn't get enough minutes together, and that's all. And he also, the other standout quote, not just to read the whole thing, was that he was asked about his relationship with Kyrie, and he declined to really get into that. It's deeper than basketball, he says, but I wouldn't say it was a problem. I didn't think it was a problem. Anyways, people were upset about
it was a problem if I didn't catch that part.
He says, that's something I'm going to keep internal. I don't want to expose our relationship. I think that's deeper than basketball, meaning his relationship. But I wouldn't say it was a problem. I didn't think it was a problem. KD has hinted that he was obviously upset with Kyrie's availability at times. I think he kind of blames Kyrie, and he also blames the team on some level for the different ways that the Nets treated Kyrie. All of this is to say that, we've done this superstar rodeo, and we certainly could again. After the break, I will run through all the teams that are going to be desperate or going to guys who are going to be available. And it is an interesting list.
Let's do it.
But let's just, what do we want? What do we want? I want everyone to think about while we're in the break, and I'm reading
Take a second.
ads for all the great companies that sponsor this podcast for the New York Times Company.
Yeah.
Stock price is just to think, ruminate on that.
Yeah.
We'll come back from the break and do that.
Okay.
And we're back, Brian.
Yeah.
So I put together this list of what I call the desperate teams, the thirsty teams. Okay. And some of it needs to be even updated because Atlanta was the first team on that list, and they beat, all my we shouldn't trade for Trae Young. I regret all those takes because he's a killer at times. He's a guy. He's a dude.
Mike, you're getting suckered right back. Anyways, we can.
Yeah, I know. This whole podcast is about don't trade for guys.
Yeah.
Just quickly listing the teams that could be very desperate. The Clippers, they lost to the Suns. right? Kawhi had this injury. PG had an injury. You could explain away why all that's happening, but it didn't. They are going to be desperate. Like, can you really bring that team back again? The Wizards fired their GM. Whoever they hire next, are they going to really want to keep Bradley Beal? Are they going to tank? They have 2 free agents in Porzingis and Kuzma. What do? Memphis is about to get bounced out of the playoffs by the Lakers, most likely. We already know that they offered 4 first-round picks for Mikal Bridges. How much would they offer for like Royce O'Neal or Joe Harris or DFS, right? Like, because I think Bridges is now moved into pretty untouchable, I would say.
Oh, wow.
Obviously, there's things you would trade, like if a team, like let's say some team with bad lottery odds comes up and wins the lottery, and they have like Wembanyama. Yeah, you would trade the first pick for Bridges, but that's not going to happen.
Wow.
Milwaukee. What is Milwaukee going to do? They are about to be bounced out of the first round. They're going to be they don't have much to trade, but they're going to be desperate. Minnesota. Rudy Gobert's situation is completely ugly. Rudy Gobert was bad last night. He is the direct reason why their playoff run has been so short and uneventful. They are out of the playoffs. What are they going to do? That's really more of a Ben Simmons situation that we've talked about. The Rudy Gobert, Ben Simmons flip. So you have Minnesota, Milwaukee, Memphis, Wizards, Clippers. The Cavs have a weakness at wing, and everyone knows that the Nets could probably flip Royce or DFS for a first-round pick pretty easily. Atlanta is still probably going to make decisions, even unless if they win this series against the Celtics. And if they beat the Celtics are going to have a lot of decisions to think about, because if they lose in the first round after having been very healthy, they're a healthy team right now. So just to say, the Nets are actually in a very good place. They're in a rare place in the NBA.
Okay.
I want to ask you this.
Yeah.
I would say they are not desperate.
No.
Right?
No. I mean, we're in that rare position of being kind of comfortably at like just maybe slightly above a 500 team. Maybe not. I don't know. Probably like if we just run it back exactly as is next year, what do you think is a realistic win total here?
Well, so that's an interesting question that I wanted to ask you, is that how good is this team if they just run it back?
I think it's like a 40-win team. I'm going to say somewhere like that. Potentially. I don't know. I mean, what was we should have done this beforehand, but like what was our win-loss
They
total
were like
after?
just below, they were just sub 500.
Yeah. That feels right. I mean, it feels like that passes my sniff test. Like it's a weird team. Obviously there's a lot of like, a lot of 3-and-D wings on this team at the moment. So you would retool a little bit going into next season, but let's just, for the hypothetical, I think it's like a 39, 40-win team. That's totally realistic. So it's like, that's a borderline playoff team in a weaker conference. Is that? But also, there's just no gun to our head in Roblox to do anything meaningful next season, because again, we're back in this place of personnel growth, which is our kind of our specialty, Mike. And we always it's interesting how we kind of go away from that. It's this spectrum. You're either all in on your window of championship, or you're all in on your growing your homegrown team, even though this is anything but a homegrown team. So I would say, I don't know, is that crazy to say it's a 41 team?
Yeah. I think that's right. So like my question off of that is like, is that good enough? Because like here are the teams that were 40-win teams. The Bulls, Raptors had 41 wins. The Thunder had 40 wins, and I'd put them in a different category. The Pelicans ended up with 42 wins, but then, they just had such a weird situation with Zion. And the desperate teams, I didn't even mention, like the Mavericks are obviously going to be desperate. The Raptors, I don't know if they're desperation, but they fired Nick Nurse, and the Bulls act like they won't be desperate, but like, what are the Bulls doing at this point? So,
I mean, my spite-driven thing is obviously I want to wait to trade the Mavs pick back to them for Luka and just have it be the coup of the century,
Yes. So, again, I've talked about this before. I think the Nets need to take a page out of the Knicks book and be cautious. Do not just rush into the first semi-superstar that bats your eyes.
Yeah.
Obviously, if the Knicks had made the Donovan Mitchell trade and they had then signed also Jalen Brunson, and I don't know if that would have worked, but I'm just assuming it maybe could have, that would have been incredible for them. but they still sit with like a great collection of assets that they will be able to flip for someone, whoever that may be. The Nets need to remain in flexibility mode. Now here's the thing though, but if they're a 40-win team, is that enough to still draw the interest of a superstar?
I mean, what were we the summer before KD and Kyrie came? I mean, it's got to be, what was it, 41 wins, 42?
Let's see what they were. I'm looking up on basketballreference.com.
Here we go.
Very fantastic.
That's a credible
website.
source. That's one credible source.
Yeah, 42 and 40.
Come on, how about my memory, Mike? How about that?
That's fantastic. So I think everyone needs to remember what, like, again, like that's the kind of team that this. I mean, obviously there's some very similar players. What my operating plan for this offseason. But obviously you're going to be in on conversations if guys are available and if it works, fantastic or not. But I would be very interested in making like a mid-tier trade that doesn't give up a ton of assets. You know, like you could trade something like, if you get anything for Joe Harris, the pick you get for Royce O'Neal going to Cleveland, combine a couple of things to then get like a really good second ball handler type. But you don't want to give up a ton. Like this team needs specific things for next season.
Yeah.
Let's assume they re-signed Cam Johnson. Claxton's back. Bridges is back. Spencer's back. Well, what you really need is like a pretty good two guard who can make some stuff happen.
I want a pretty good one guard is what I want.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's the thing with Spencer is like people may not love Spencer as like the lead guard, but he is flexible. He can be next to.
It's good in a pinch, but I think even he would agree that that's not his natural best situation.
So, to me, if Trae Young is made available, that's just going to be too much. Then you are depleting assets because I think there will be enough teams that will want Trae Young, and I don't think the Nets are the right team for him. Even though, like, if the Nets don't give up their wing, I mean, I don't know. It's hard to figure out what you'd have to give up for Trae Young, because like the perfect team for him would be Spencer as the off guard, Bridges, Cam Johnson, and Nick Claxton. Like that's a great. You have a pick and roll partner with Nick Claxton. You have shooters. Everything's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you're going to have to give up elements of that to get Trae Young. So that's what's hard about trying to distinguish whether you want him or not.
Would you just in a vacuum, same package, Trae Young over Damian Lillard? That's already locked in for you?
Trae Young over Damian Lillard. No, I would still rather have Dame. I just don't think his next move is not to Brooklyn. Unless if we get, like, even though he says he loves Mikal Bridges whenever he said that, I'm not going to put, like, they may be friends and they may have genuine affection for each other.
Whoa.
If I'm Dame, my next move is to play with the Lakers and LeBron, or to play with.
What? He's going to do that move? That's the move?
It's championship or bust for him. That's the only reason why I think he would leave Portland, is to win a championship.
Not to get another scrappy upstart.
Or like to go to Phoenix.
Portland East. Yeah.
And not that Phoenix can trade much of anything, but they send.
But his brand to this point has been so much about not doing that. He's been so public. Like, it would be such an about face. You know, how could you?
Oh, yeah. It's a rare thing for an NBA player to change exactly what they said they were going to do and then do the thing.
Well, there's
Look
not
at Russell Westbrook.
I want to. I mean, on an individual level, there's no reason to think Lillard would be the one to change his stance. But point taken. I'm here for it.
So I just mentioned his name. This is my true secret weapon plan for this offseason. Okay. As much as I did not want Russell Westbrook on this team, when it was Kevin Durant, Kyrie, and Ben Simmons, when Ben Simmons was still a factor within the equation.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm dying for Russ, but if I'm Sean Marks, I would be very interested in what the Russ market is going to be, because regardless of how you feel about him in terms of the level of inefficiency, and trust me, he makes mistakes at the end of games. He makes boneheaded decisions. He is like not exactly what this team needs, but he could be the perfect thing that this team needs for the price, because he is a free agent. I don't know. I don't think anyone's going to offer him anything more than at the most like a mid-level exception. And he's kind of what parts of him are what the Nets need.
Yeah.
Here's what he is. Super attacking, which is
super attacking
is what this team needs.
Yeah.
Pidgeotto like speed.
Mm-hmm.
He is a good rebounder. He's nastiness.
Is that a Pokemon, Pidgeotto?
Yeah, Pidgeotto. Okay. It's an evolved form of Pidgeot or something. Pidgeotto is like the second tier of a whatever. It's one of the Pokemon you can get early on in the game.
Okay.
Not like you get it. You don't get it from the lab, but
I've got a big blind spot for Pokemon. I confess to this. I've never played one. I know it's bad.
Well, I'm trying to teach you. I'm trying to impart that knowledge, my friend. People are going to hate the idea of Russ. If I'm the Nets, like part of my issue with trying to just like keep everything level and being a 40-win team is like, then you kind of don't become that appetizing to the stars, to the Lukas of the world.
Yeah.
And you need to be able to compete for like a 5th seed while also not like blowing anything for the future. And Russ is that guy. Like Russ fits in, like, there are problems with him, but he does the things, and he is a very good rebounder for being a guard. He brings in the nastiness like we talked about. There's like, there's a great mentality about him that I think would really be exciting. I'm just saying I would be very interested to see what's the value of Russ. Just tell me. And if it's too much, hey, I'll walk away. I'll walk away from the table.
Let me put it this way. I think it's a little dependent on the Ben Simmons situation. And I know that that's an annoying caveat to set as a pretense for this conversation. But like, if there's a world in which Ben Simmons comes back with that fabled 85% of his all-star self that we want it, we got to have it. If that happens, then I do think that the redundancy of two spectacularly non-shooting guards on the floor at the same time make it, maybe a prohibitive thing. However, in the scenario in which that's not the case, for whatever reason, Ben's stacking those DNPs, do you think it makes a lot of sense? Now, that's not a great situation to be in the first place. You're operating from a place of not great leverage personnel-wise. But for me, I'm open to it. I think it's a little bit of a read and react situation with regards to Ben Simmons. I know that that's like probably unrealistic just because this decision has to be made sooner than you'll have the information in hand. So I don't know exactly how you finagle that situation, but practically that's sort of how I see it. I just wouldn't want them on the floor at the same time. It's just it would just be too much of a meme. I can't have that much memery at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, so the Russell Westbrook plan would be dependent on. I actually wouldn't think about Ben Simmons at all. I don't care about him.
Well, screw you too, Mike. How about that?
I just don't think about him at all. Like, cause he's who knows what his health is going to be, like who he's going to be. To team build, I know you're not really saying this. To team build it all around Ben Simmons is like, that's just a fool's errand.
I think you got to be thinking about a flow chart of if-then statements. Like if we have both of them and they're both healthy and they're both playing, but now you can't play them at the same time, that just creates a headache. I just think it's worth considering. I mean, obviously you're playing for like a best case scenario in that case, which is with those two guys not a usually a good thing to do, but if in the flow chart,
the guy that again, Russell Westbrook's not tier 1 plan. The tier 1, what's
the tier 1 plan then?
I don't know if this is tier 1, but a guy I'm even more interested, but yet it seems like the team that he's on is not gonna just ship off every asset. I am interested to see if like the Bulls are gonna give up, and because they did have such a bad season, and if DeMar DeRozan, like I think he's on an expiring contract. He's just an amazing scorer. He's exactly what this team needs. Known good guy.
Can I throw out a meme name too while we're talking about the Bulls? Yeah. I don't know where Lonzo Ball is and his mystery injury.
Oh, well.
But if we're talking about high risk, high potential reward, because I liked, the season that he had right before this whole thing happened. There's a lot to like about what Lonzo was doing.
I don't think there's
That's
rumors that it's like retirement level
really
stuff.
But I mean, the amount of rumors about this injury is it's a whirlwind, Mike.
No, but you're right. Like what he was is like I always loved that player. Defensive, quick moving.
It's funny that they're all kind of
guard.
three sort of somewhat different but similar versions of like the weirdly shooting, I'll call it, like because they have their hot spots, all three of them. Well, Ben Simmons has 0 hot spots, but yeah, they're all just kind of like different variations of the same, like kind of not easy to work with archetype of a player.
Yeah, I like DeRozan because he's also like, again, he is a very efficient.
This is a totally
scorer.
different player, though, Mike. I mean, now we're just talking about just guys we want.
Yeah, but like that's the kind of the good thing about this Nets roster is that you could fit in a lot of type of dudes. Russ is a worse fit, admittedly, than DeRozan. Like DeRozan could be on any team in the NBA, I feel like, because of his mid-range scoring. Where like Russ, yeah, if you're playing him with Ben Simmons, that would suck. But I just have no faith in Ben Simmons. The Nets need a guy who can score on his own in any situation. And DeRozan's like maybe going to be like the cheapest one available. This was just a table
Meandering, yeah, we're setting the table for a big offseason, Mike. Wow, let's stretch it out. Stretch it out.
Well, thank you for listening. We'll be back in your ears as soon as possible. I'm sure we're going to get so much more into it. We're also going to hear more rumors from more teams about who they don't like.
You know
because
how the offseason gets. It gets crazy out there.
Teams are bouncing out of the playoffs. So thank you all so much for listening.
All right, discord.gg/glue EPK, glue guys on Twitter. New York Times. Grab yourself a fresh paper at your local bodega. We're out of here. Say goodbye, Mike.
Bye.